want to start by asking you about this very interesting conundrum that we are witnessing, that you have an a Shia revolution in Iran in 1979, and Khomeini then takes up a Sunni Arab cause of the Palestinians. Explain to us why Iran is possibly the only Muslim country in the world today that's actively engaged in conflict with Israel.
This comes down to the fact that the Islamic Revolution in Iran also portrayed itself as the leader of the Islamic world, that it was the represented the change that would incorporate the Arab world as well. But as you correctly said, Iran is neither Arab nor Sunni. It is Persian and it is Shia. So automatically it is traditionally not seen as a country that can lead the Arab world, which is why Khomeini actually said once, we have to be more Arab than the Arab. Right. And the easiest cause for them to collect, especially once they began fighting with Arab nations like Iraq, was Israel. That was the one thing they knew the Arab street would rally on. And I should add, there's one other country that had a similar, should we say similar idea, was Turkey. Again, non-Arab, but they at least are Sunni.
Right.
But Erdogan, for example, actually reversed many decades of friendship between Turkey and Israel for the same purpose. That he's had this, quote, neo-Ottoman foreign policy, and part of that required him to win over the Arab world. So he again picked on Israel. And I should add, Khomeini did the same thing. The Shah of Iran had an excellent relationship with the Israelis.
Absolutely,
because they both saw the Arabs as common enemies or rivals. So he have actually reversed the same thing. And I can remember when the relationship with Iran and Israel deteriorated, Israel actually turned to India. And they had diplomats come here and tell the Indian side, since you still have open lines of communication with Qom as well as Tehran, please tell them we don't have what is the cause of the conflict here? We're not interested. We don't have a problem with you. You're too far away. But ultimately it was this ideological issue that for the Islamic Revolution's own legitimacy, and I think partly because of their own failures on the domestic front in Iran, positioning themselves as the country in the Islamic world that was the only one prepared to take on Israel, has become even more important. And on top of that, of course, as we've seen, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and many of the Gulf Emiratis had been trying to normalize their relationship with Israel.
Right.
And they are regional rivals, direct regional rivals to Iran. I mean, not just in the larger Arab world, but in the Persian Gulf itself.
Right, and Iran has now ringed Israel with this, network of proxies. You have Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, and you have this very interesting series of videos that Hezbollah has been teasing, saying that Sheikh Nasrallah is going to release a speech tomorrow. Do you think that Hezbollah is going to actually actively join the fight against Israel?
Well, they haven't already in a sense, because they've been firing odd batches of missiles, nothing major, given the size of their arsenal, which probably runs into tens of thousands of missiles. As Arab journalists will tell you, Hezbollah is about 10 times the size of Hamas in terms of its military capacity.
It's very well resourced. It's supposed to be the world's biggest non-state actor.
Correct. And it really is a state within a state, given how weak Lebanon is. Lebanon is barely functional as a state. So yes, Iran has been able to penetrate. I mean, Hamas, which is effectively the Palestinian arm of the Muslim Brotherhood. Now keep in mind, the Muslim Brotherhood was fighting the Shia or the Alawi regime in Syria during the civil war recently. So in effect, the Muslim Brotherhood was attacking an ally of Iran in Syria. But after that war is over, Iran has been prepared to strike a deal or support Hamas. It's been supporting them for a while. But the greater ability, the use of the Palestinians for the Israeli card or the Jewish card that they're playing in the Arab world basically meant that they were prepared to strike a deal with the Muslim Brotherhood, at least on that arm of the Muslim Brotherhood. But Hezbollah has always been the arm of the Iranian Islamic Revolution. They have been, partly because they have literally no other external ally. It is the only country that the other Sunni Arab countries don't support and will not work with Hezbollah for obvious reasons. But it has been also the most effective of the Iranian militia. Iran has several militia, Shia militia in Iraq, in Syria, in Lebanon, and other parts of
It's
the world.
possibly the country with the largest number of these kind of proxies.
It
all
has,
across.
it has an interesting sort of informal empire.
Right.
Rather than trying to directly control Iraq or
Right.
directly control Syria, it tries to have effectively a military structure or agency in each of these countries, or several of them, which is more powerful than any other military organization in that region.
Right.
So in effect, Hezbollah is more powerful than the Lebanese army, which is
Yes.
barely existent, right? The various Shia militia in Iraq are arguably as strong as, if not stronger than, the Iraqi military or the Iraqi government's ability. So they basically say, as long as we have veto power
Right.
on what that country does, we stop there. We don't have to rule the country. But it is that's
You should have a lever of influence
exactly
on that.
But they have no interest, or they don't have a policy of trying to build up that country, do development, win hearts and minds. So that's not our issue.
Right.
We win the Shia population in those countries,
Right.
but we maintain the ability that any government in that country will always look to Tehran and say, is it okay what we're doing? Because we know that you can undermine this. It's a sort of negative power, if you wish.
Right.
It's not a positive power. It's not about, we're not going to build an example or model for the rest of the world, but it keeps them in a position. So between Lebanon all the way to effectively the border of Pakistan is a giant Iranian protectorate.
Yeah, it's a Shia super state.
Correct.
Yeah, you can
Right.
drive from the Mediterranean right up to the Arabian
Correct.
Sea without crossing.
But
any
it's
Sunni,
interesting because it's not a state,
Right.
right? It's this strange, it's a protectorate, if you wish.
Protectorate, yeah, absolutely.
But it's not ruled directly by Iran. It just
Yeah.
has the ability to make sure that it has its way
Right.
in that way. And so Hezbollah, though, is in many ways the first real example of this. It was the most successful, and
the earliest.
it is the earliest. In many ways, is the model for what they've done now in
Right.
Syria and Iraq
Right.
and elsewhere. They've set up these militias. They even have supposedly a militia of Indian Shia,
Right.
who don't operate obviously in India, but they've been recruited and live in the Iraqi area.
Right.